stop. If you believe the law of attraction is simply about positive thinking and passively expecting life-altering changes, you're mistaken. That's why many people spend years repeating affirmations, memorizing motivational quotes, visualizing prosperity, and remain financially strapped. Do you understand why? There's a crucial detail no one has revealed, and it determines whether you attract abundance or remain in scarcity. The law of attraction isn't a magic shortcut, nor an instant formula to solve all your problems. It operates with the same unwavering consistency as gravity, perpetually, uninterruptedly, flawlessly. Believe it or not, this doesn't change the fact that it affects your life right now. And here's the essential truth few dare to confront. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Imagine with me, how many times have you deeply longed for more financial resources, for economic stability, for achieving your dreams, yet expenses persisted, financial commitments piled up, and everything seemed immutable? This doesn't happen due to a lack of intense desire. Desire itself holds no power if your inner energy is misaligned. It's like trying to tune into a jazz radio station when your receiver is set to pick up only static. No matter how much you adjust the desire knob, if you don't change the frequency, the correct melody will never be heard. I've discovered that the human body is an energy field, vibrating at high speed. If you could examine it microscopically, you'd see millions of particles in constant motion. Nothing remains static. Everything in the universe vibrates. Everything is in continuous flux. And every thought you hold, every emotion you nurture, positions you at a specific frequency. This frequency acts as an invisible magnet, attracting people, situations, and events that resonate precisely with your personal vibration. And you may have already wondered, if this is true, why do I continue to attract what I don't want? The answer is simple, yet profound. Because what truly governs your existence is not what you consciously desire, but rather what is ingrained in your subconscious. These are the mental models, the patterns of thought, beliefs, and habits that have been internalized since childhood. You grew up hearing phrases like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "Achieving goals requires effort," "The rich are selfish." And without realizing it, all of this shaped your vibrational frequency. Now answer, how can someone attract prosperity if, deep down, they nurture the belief that money is impure or that it's only obtained through sacrifice? How can they live in abundance if daily they wake up fearing the loss of what little they possess? It's not conscious desire that attracts, it's the underlying emotional programming. And this explains why so many people live in repetitive cycles. They work more, study more, strive more, but the results don't change. It's like running on a treadmill. You exhaust yourself, you sweat, but you remain in the same spot. Because it's not physical effort that modifies the frequency, it's inner transformation. Perhaps you're experiencing this very thing. You yearn for progress, but feel blocked, as if an invisible force is pulling you back. It's frustrating, isn't it? However, this feeling doesn't indicate failure. On the contrary, it's evidence that you've perceived the truth. There's no point in desiring prosperity if your vibration resonates with scarcity. As soon as I understood this, everything became clear. I realized that life doesn't respond to what you verbalize, but to what you truly believe is possible for yourself. If you vibrate at a frequency of fear, you continue to attract situations that confirm that fear. If you vibrate at a frequency of gratitude, you begin to open space for new opportunities. Now reflect on something. How many times have you declared to yourself that you would change your life, but after some time, return to the same pattern? How many times have you promised to save money, start a business, invest in something new, and in the end, life returned to normal? This doesn't happen due to laziness. It happens because your frequency hasn't changed. You may have new thoughts, but if you don't truly feel this change, if you don't align emotion with desire, nothing happens. It's as if the universe is an echo. It doesn't respond to what you pronounce, but to what you vibrate with your heart. And as long as your vibration is misaligned, you will continue to hear the same return. Many people believe that simply thinking positively is enough to transform life. They repeat phrases in front of the mirror, post notes with inspiring words on the walls, repeat to themselves, "I am rich, I am prosperous, I possess abundance." but they remain in financial difficulties. This happens because positive thinking in isolation doesn't change absolutely anything. It may provide momentary relief, but it doesn't affect concrete results. And do you know why? Because it's not the conscious mind that governs your life, it's the paradigm rooted in your subconscious. The paradigm is like an invisible autopilot that directs all your behaviors, decisions, and reactions. You may have clarity about your goals, but if your paradigm doesn't allow it, you won't be able to maintain that change. How many people do you know who are educated, intelligent, titled, yet face financial difficulties? They possess knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't translate into practical results. The problem isn't a lack of information, it's the paradigm. It's as if internally, a program is running continuously, insisting on repeating the same pattern of results, no matter how much they try to escape. I myself wondered why so many intelligent people, even more competent than I, couldn't prosper. They accumulated titles, had brilliant careers in theory, but couldn't convert this into real prosperity. It was only when I understood the power of the paradigm that everything made sense. It doesn't matter how many books you read, how many courses you take, how many positive affirmations you repeat. If your paradigm asserts that you don't deserve it, that it's difficult, that wealth isn't for you, your life will obey that hidden command. Perhaps you've already felt this frustration. You study, learn, seek, strive, but it's as if something is pulling you back to the same place. It's as if there's an invisible barrier that you can never overcome. And the worst part is that many times you blame yourself for it, thinking you don't have enough discipline, that you haven't tried hard enough, when in fact, what's happening is that you're trying to modify results without changing the root of the problem. The conscious mind is capable of conceiving any idea, but it's the unconscious mind that holds the emotions, and it's the emotion that creates the vibration. You can say, "I am rich 100 times a day," but if internally you feel fear of not being able to meet your expenses, that emotion is what truly manifests. That's what the law of attraction responds to, not to what you say, but to what you deeply feel and believe. Think of someone who decides to become an entrepreneur. They rationally believe they can succeed, but their paradigm is programmed for scarcity. They even take some steps, but soon begin to feel fear, insecurity, and return to their comfort zone. Or the person who declares that they will save money, but at the first impulse spends what they have. The problem isn't a lack of willpower, it's the internal autopilot. And this is where the biggest mistake of most people lies, believing that modifying thoughts is sufficient. You can replace one thought with another, but if you don't change the underlying paradigm, nothing truly transforms. It's like repainting the walls of a house with cracked foundations. From the outside it looks beautiful, but inside it remains unstable. Now reflect, how many times have you promised to change, to do differently, and after a while return to the same pattern as before? This doesn't mean you're incapable, it just means you're trying to fight against a program that's much stronger than your conscious will. And until that program is rewritten, your life will continue to repeat the same chapters. The truth is that positive thinking is only the beginning. It's important, but it's not enough. What truly transforms everything is when you manage to harmonize emotion and belief, when you manage to change the base, when you replace the old paradigm with a new one. Only then does what you think begin to reflect in your results. And until that moment, life will continue to demonstrate that the most common mistake is believing that desiring is power, when in fact what matters is what your subconscious accepts as truth. The great trap that prevents most people from transforming their lives lies in comfort. It seems paradoxical, but that's exactly it. The comfort of the familiar, even if it's painful, even if it doesn't bring the desired results. Your paradigm, this unconscious programming, does everything to keep you in the known. It was built from repeated experiences, beliefs, and habits, and therefore became the zone where your mind feels safe. And every time you try something different, it creates resistance. It's that discomfort, that inner voice saying, this won't work, you don't have experience, it's better not to risk it. And most people obey that voice. How many times have you had an idea that could change your life, but gave up out of fear? How many times have you thought about changing careers, investing in something new, starting a promising project, but backed down because it seemed too risky. This doesn't happen due to a lack of ability. It happens because the paradigm has learned to protect you, keeping you bound to the familiar. However, the familiar isn't always the best. The familiar can be the job you hate, the relationship that no longer makes sense, the debts that accumulate monthly. But even so, your mind insists on staying there because it already knows how to handle it. I experienced this intensely. When I worked for the fire department, I didn't have great prospects. It was a stable job, yes, but I knew I didn't want to spend my whole life there. However, when the opportunity to start my own business arose, my entire being was in conflict. I had no formal education, no administrative experience, no savings, and everything inside me screamed that I was making a fool of myself. And to be honest, I didn't even believe that much that it could work. But there was something inside me that said, if you don't try, you'll spend your life repeating this same pattern. It was uncomfortable. It was terrifying. I lost sleep. I was afraid of failing. I thought about giving up many times, but I took the step. And the result was that in the first year, the business thrived in a way I could never have imagined. I earned more than I could have dreamed of earning in years as a firefighter. It was at that moment that I understood that discomfort wasn't a sign of danger, it was a sign of growth. And that's a lesson you need to learn. The paradigm will always try to keep you in your comfort zone, but it's precisely outside of it that life begins to change. The problem is that most people associate discomfort with something negative. They feel fear and believe it's better not to act. If they feel insecure, they stop halfway. But the truth is that this discomfort is exactly the proof that you are breaking with the old pattern. It's a sign that you are forcing your unconscious to accept a new frequency. And yes, at first it will hurt. It will seem strange. It will bring doubts. But it's only by going through this process that the new can be established. Think of all the times you avoided doing something because of fear. If you had moved forward, where would you be now? How many opportunities have you already let slip away because your mind said it wasn't the right time? Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Life responds to what you do, even with fear, even with insecurity. And it's curious because science corroborates this. Research in behavioral psychology shows that humans have a natural tendency to avoid change, even if it's positive, because the brain associates the unknown with a possible threat. But it also shows that it's precisely when you face this discomfort that new neural connections are formed. And that's where the transformation happens. I learned that the only way to overcome the paradigm is to act despite fear. When you do this, you begin to train your mind to accept a new pattern, and gradually this new pattern becomes your comfort. What once seemed impossible becomes natural. It was like that for me, and it can be like that for you too. So, ask yourself now, what did you fail to do because it seemed too uncomfortable? What do you know you need to change, but haven't yet had the courage to do? Understand that this resistance is not proof that you shouldn't move forward. It's just the last gasp of the paradigm trying to keep you trapped. If you cross this barrier, on the other side is the life you so desire. Poverty is not just the absence of financial resources. It is above all a frequency. People who live with their minds fixed on scarcity inevitably end up attracting more want, more limitations, and more difficulties. It's like tuning a radio. If you're on the wrong frequency, no matter how much you turn the desire knob, you'll never pick up the right melody. And when someone vibrates with constant worry about bills, debts, and problems, that person is, without realizing it, daily reinforcing the tuning of poverty. Perhaps you've been through this. When debts start to accumulate, it seems that everything conspires to make things worse. An unexpected bill arises, an unforeseen expense, an emergency that consumes what little is left. And you ask yourself, why does this always happen to me? The answer is simple yet painful. It's because you are trapped in the frequency of scarcity. Your mind is so focused on the fear of losing that it continues to attract more situations that confirm that fear. I remember nights when I would lie down thinking about how I would pay the bills the following month. And do you know what would happen? I would wake up with the same anguish, with the same feeling of weight. It was as if the problem amplified overnight. And it was during this period that I understood something fundamental. When you nurture negative feelings, you reinforce the negative vibration. It's like planting seeds of worry daily and then being surprised to harvest fruits of more problems. And it's not just me who says this. Research conducted by the Harvard Business Review has shown that 85% of people's financial worries never materialize. In other words, most people spend their lives suffering over scenarios that will never happen. But this energy of constant worry keeps the mind glued to the frequency of scarcity. Have you noticed how, when you worry too much, even opportunities that could help you seem to disappear? This happens because your attention is so focused on fear that you can't see solutions. Now reflect with me. How many times have you said, "I can't spend, it won't work, the money is running out"? And how did you feel after repeating these phrases? Relieved or even more overwhelmed? The truth is that these words are not just phrases, they are affirmations that reinforce your vibration. The universe doesn't hear, "I can't spend." What it picks up is lack, lack, lack. And that's exactly what you attract back. On the other hand, when you start to change your vibration, even if you don't yet have the desired financial resources, things start to align. Gratitude, for example, is one of the fastest ways to change frequency. It seems too simple, but it works. When you choose to focus on what you already have, instead of complaining about what you lack, you put your mind on a completely different wavelength. It's like changing stations on the radio. Suddenly the noise disappears and you start to hear a clear, pleasant song. I know that, for those who are swamped in debt, it may seem impossible to feel gratitude. But it was at this point that I realized the importance of choice. When I decided to stop complaining about what I didn't have and started to thank for what was already present, my health, my energy, the opportunities that were arising, my reality began to change. I didn't get rich overnight, but I realized that doors that were previously closed began to open, and all this happened because I changed my internal frequency. What keeps most people trapped in scarcity is not the lack of opportunities, but the mental prison in which they live. It's the habit of thinking small, of focusing on the problem, of believing that it will always be this way. And if you keep repeating this same frequency, your life will continue to bring more of the same situations. But when you consciously decide to change the way you feel, even before changing the results, the universe begins to respond differently. Scarcity is just a radio station. You can choose to change the tuning. And when you change, you will realize that what seemed impossible begins to happen in ways you never imagined. There are clear examples, perceptible to everyone, of how the paradigm can build or destroy a whole life. It doesn't matter how much money someone earns, how many opportunities they have, or even how talented they are. If the paradigm is programmed for scarcity, sooner or later, everything that has been achieved will escape. It's like filling a leaky bucket. No matter how much water, it will always leak. Mike Tyson is a case that illustrates this forcefully. He earned more than $300 million in his career. $300 million. How many families could live in comfort with that fortune? And yet, he lost everything. Why? Because he never changed his internal programming. He attracted wealth with his talent, but his mind, trapped in a paradigm of self-destruction and lack of control, was unable to sustain abundance. The result was inevitable: bankruptcy, personal problems, and the confirmation that money without a change of frequency is transitory. On the other hand, there are stories that prove the opposite, that show how a change of paradigm can take someone from almost impossible conditions to the top. Oprah Winfrey was born into a reality marked by extreme poverty and abuse that could easily have condemned her to repeat the patterns of suffering and limitation that surrounded her childhood. But she did something different. She reprogrammed the way she saw herself, cultivated a growth mindset, and learned to tune her vibration to abundance and possibilities. The result? She became one of the most influential and multi-millionaire women on the planet. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was proof that when you change your internal frequency, the external world responds proportionally. And this contrast between Tyson and Oprah teaches us a powerful lesson. Wealth is not just the money you receive, it's the ability to sustain that abundance with the correct paradigm. Without this change, It doesn't matter if you win the lottery, sign million-dollar contracts, or achieve great momentary success. Everything will be lost because the mind will find a way to return to the old pattern. And that's why so many people who receive unexpected fortunes return to square one in a few years. The frequency hasn't changed. Now observe your own life. How many times have you received a raise, closed a big deal, or received extra money, and shortly afterward felt that everything dissipated? It wasn't just bad luck. It was the force of a thought pattern. Unbeknownst to you, you find ways to spend, lose, and accrue more debt because deep down you believe wealth won't stay in your hands or that you need to spend to enjoy life. The universe mirrors your inner state. Giants like Oprah Winfrey demonstrate that origin doesn't matter. It's the energy you cultivate. Figures like Mike Tyson reveal that vast sums of money don't guarantee lasting prosperity without a mindset shift. If these stories don't prompt reflection on your relationship with fortune, what will? The core principle is simple. It's not enough to learn how to attract wealth. You must learn to retain it. You need to mold your mind to live in harmony with abundance. Otherwise, even if you achieve prosperity momentarily, you'll be pulled back to square one. The crucial question is, are you prepared to reshape your mental patterns so that when opportunity arises, you not only seize it, but also preserve it? Most people don't understand that transforming outcomes isn't merely about thinking differently. It requires a shift in ingrained thought patterns. The conscious mind generates new ideas, but without transforming the emotional programming etched into the subconscious, everything remains unchanged. It's like installing modern software on an old computer without updating the operating system. You might press the right buttons, but the results won't be as expected. And here's the crucial detail. The subconscious doesn't respond to words, but to emotions. Repeating affirmations all day is ineffective without genuine conviction. If the desire isn't infused with emotion, the old pattern will simply reject it. That's why many people start projects with enthusiasm and give up within days. It's not a lack of willpower, it's a lack of mental reprogramming. I remember reading Think and Grow Rich. Initially, those ideas caused me such discomfort that I almost abandoned the book. It was as if each page challenged everything I believed. And you know what I felt? Fear, resistance, insecurity. But it was precisely that feeling that pointed me in the right direction, because I was confronting my ingrained thought patterns. I followed the instructions, even without fully understanding. And within a year, my income jumped from $4,000 to $175,000. Later, I surpassed the $1 million mark. The most surprising thing is that it took me almost 10 years to understand how it happened. I didn't just change my thinking, I changed my mental patterns. Therefore, if you crave different results, you need to start feeling what you desire, not just thinking it. By associating genuine emotions with a new idea, it begins to penetrate the subconscious. Gratitude, for example, is one of the most effective tools. By focusing daily on things you're grateful for, even if you don't yet have the life you want, you send the subconscious a clear message. I already possess, I already am, I already live in abundance. This alters your vibration. That's why I propose a challenge. For 7 days upon waking, write down 10 things you're deeply grateful for. Don't just think them, write them down. The act of recording reinforces the reality of those things in the subconscious. Throughout the day, whenever you notice your mind turning to scarcity, stop and reconnect with one of those reasons for gratitude. Do this consistently. It may seem simple, but it's this type of practice that begins to break the cycle of repetition. Science has proven that regular practice of gratitude modifies brain structures related to well-being and decision-making. Researchers at the University of California have shown that people who write about gratitude not only feel happier, but also make more conscious and balanced financial decisions. This proves it's not just about spirituality or invisible energy. It's about real changes in how the brain functions, and that's precisely what you need to transform your vibration into something consistent, not fleeting. By changing your thought patterns, the change in results is automatic. You begin to attract different people, different opportunities. Circumstances that once seemed impossible begin to present themselves. And it's at that moment that the law of attraction ceases to be an abstract concept and becomes a tangible reality. So I ask, are you willing to face the discomfort of changing your mental patterns and turning this gratitude exercise into a daily habit? Because if you do, you'll soon realize that the biggest mistake was believing that wanting is enough. Desire opens the door, but it's the change in vibration that allows passage. The law of attraction doesn't respond to what you want, but to what you are, to what you feel and vibrate every day. It's your thought patterns that determine whether you'll continue repeating the same results or make room for something entirely new. And if you've already realized this, you're ahead of the majority. Because from this understanding, every small step you take gains strength. And in the next video, which is appearing on the screen, I'll show you how to climb another rung on this ladder of progress, so that you become a little better than you are now. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you in the next video.